Leaving Asheville is my 8th studio album, and I guess it was finished a couple of years ago now, and it's been out that long. And it's on iTunes, and you can also hear it on YouTube, Leaving Asheville. Asheville is a new age capital in America, and a friend of mine, Tony, that's where he came from. And he was living out all around the world, just wanted to experience life outside Asheville, this new age capital. And I guess it's kind of like an acronym, if that's the word, for Glastonbury. And the lyric is, I'm leaving Asheville, I'm going down to the sea. I got the message, be me. And that's basically what it's about. And like the last album, I'm kind of in a that's the second in a trilogy, and I'm just about to put together my new album, which is called Evolution. But we're not here to talk about that now. We'll talk about that when it's done. And so the album starts with this slow burning rock tune, and I guess I'm playing out some kind of music, and I don't mean plagiarizing it, I'm playing out some kind of vibes of music that I picked up right through the 90s listening to Robert Plant's solo music. You know, he was incredible in Led Zeppelin, but his solo records, particularly in the 90s for me, Fate of Nations is very moving, and The Greatest Gift is my favourite on there, and there are lots of similarities, I guess, in that, but I'm not comparing it and saying it's anywhere near as good. My music is kind of more indie, even though it's rock. It's not punk, but I'm out on my own limb doing this, and I follow my foot or my nose or my heart to make the kind of music I think I ought to be making, that I want to make. Anyway, where nature is alone starts the same. It has this slow moving, brooding thing with an overture to lead you in. Well, this time I was in the music shop, Sonus Magus, with my friend Mark Ty Wharton, who produced the second track on this album and co-wrote the last one with me. We'll talk about that in a minute. He has this little plastic box that creates drone sounds, and the drone sounds were playing in the shop, and he was burning incense, and it's like chanting or Krishna chanting or Buddha chanting, and it was hypnotic. So I said, could I record it? And it just so happens it's in the key of G, which the title song is. So there's this sound. So I just picked this Zoom recorder up, which I use to make recordings and radio shows, and held it up to the drone sound and recorded it. Took it home and looped it. We didn't try directly wiring it in or anything like it. We just picked it up with the Zoom recorder. Anyway, it starts the album and you can hear it, and it also appears during the song, like this lovely loop of chanting, very hypnotic. And it also comes back later as a kind of coda in the record, in a very slow moving electronica kind of thing. If it was vinyl, this album would be side 1 rock, side 2 chill out. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, so there we go. Also, it cuts loose in the middle and breaks away with the guitar riff, and some kind of, again, influenced by Led Zeppelin, In the Evening. And we'd always talk, me and Ken Winhouse would always, in Gold Ray, Reef guitar player, we'd always talk about what happened in the middle of In the Evening, in the guitar solo, where Jimmy seems to either snap a guitar in half or pluck it with a pair of scissors or a pair of pliers or something, and it just goes. We could never work out what he was doing. Now, Jimmy is a master of several guitars at once. You know, he'd layer guitars on records like a lot of people, and I've done the same here. There are several guitars leading us through that solo, and I just give Ken Winhouse a run for his money there. So we've got type guitar, yeah. And I think Ken's just shone that back to me on the Gold Ray album. Thank you, Ken. Amazing. Love his work, always will do. My favourite guitar player, alongside Jimmy Page. He knows that. Jimmy, for me, is the master. Paul Kossoff too. But Ken, he's a living rock star, man, and he's living his dream, and that's all I can say, which is all the game ever was. And he keeps it very singular, and when I'm with him, it reminds me, well, he's just rowing his boat with one guitar. And in fact, I think he did that in a video, All I Want by Reef. Anyway, there's enough of that, enough of buddies and rock and roll friends. So track 2 like the last album, like Where Nature Is Alone, is followed by Changing Times, a snappy number, and I'm very proud of. And but this one is a little bit more rock production. We've returned a little bit more to Bruce Springsteen land, rock pop, which is the backbone of what I ever did, was write rock pop for myself and other people. And so people like you and me, Mark Ty Wharton, I played on the chorus. I played the rest of the guitars, but I said, Mark, can you do something a little bit like the Pretenders, like Jimmy Hunnam and Scott and the Pretenders, across the show, which he did do, and it's really very interesting. And he also remixed it for me. Well, I rank along. I'm in there. Mark has worked with Duran Duran and produced them. He's produced Adamski, which is his brother, and also Seal and Ian Brown remixes. So I'm massively honoured to have a track mixed on my album by Mark Ty Wharton. Thank you so much, Mark. Absolutely amazing. Not just because he's famous like that, or in inverted commas famous, but because it felt right. I get lots of offers from people in the music business, and you'd be surprised by who, to say, oh, I'll play on your records. But unless I feel it, unless it's going with all the love in the world, I usually say no. But this time I asked someone else to be on it, and there. Thank you, Mark. Track 3 is Living the Dream, and it's a fast-moving piece with some drums put together by a DJ that I know. And it's a fast-moving thing, and it was inspired by Bob Galley, who one day was talking, and he said to me, Dave, I'd love to give my day job up and just play music all the time. Bob Galley is one of my favourites. I could fall asleep listening to his music with a pint. It's absolutely beautiful, dreamy, real voice, real writer. Check out Oh Mexico, Bob Galley, really good. And excuse me, I'll take a slurp of tea. I left the vocal is more Bowie. It twists and turns the tune. 1 minute's cracking in there, and then it hits the chorus. And when it hits the chorus, suddenly there's a bass guitar, which is a very rare thing on a record for me, because I've been making records a la the White Stripes, making rock and roll without a bass guitar, just with the guitars and the drums. And but I thought a bass guitar on that chorus comes in, and a ringing a bell guitar, again like the Pretenders, down, 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 right through it, which is a 60s thing. So anyway, a friend of mine saying, oh, you can sing better than that. Yeah, but you don't always just use your voice to because you can, like, oh, I'm going to sing like this. You go into the character, and the character asks for this particular voice, and that's where I did it, and I'm proud of it. And it's it is inspired by Billy, and a couple of other people came into my mind, like people who paint when they get home from working in Tesco's or whatever they do. And they work from 9 to 5, but live the dream at night. And actually, I've been doing that for all of this year, 7 days a week. And I have left doing even things like this, talking and telling a story about a record, to now in the autumn when I'm not working out there anymore. So that's really good news. So anyway, after that, we go into She's a One. Now, She's a One is... I knew it was a piano song. It's a piano boogie song. It's a bit like Chaz and Dave, really. And so I thought, no, I'm not going to play this, because there's one thing I can play ballads on a piano, but I don't play rock and roll on a piano. I just can't get that syncopation going. I can play funk, I can play soul, I can play jazz, but not the kind of boogie music. So I asked Mr. Simon Ford to come and play. Again, going back to the Brummie scene. He was on the music scene with Duran Duran and Stephen Duffy, who was going to be the Duran Duran singer before Simon joined. Anyway, he's a big heads up on that scene, and he really loves his music, not necessarily the mainstream. For instance, he loves Glenn Hughes, who worked with Trapeze and Deep Purple. He loves Paul Kossoff's solo records, and he knows an awful lot about them. He's a great guy to know. So I went to his house, and his lovely wife, Milka, whose sister's in Duran Duran. This is getting spooky. From Brazil, and their beautiful daughter Evie, and I went to their house, and Milka insisted I ate lots of food, and I was full up. Thank you so much, Milka. And we went in the lounge, and Simon did 2 takes of She's a One. I guess I went with the first one, and it's got drums and floor toms banging away, and it's got this piano and a spoken verses about funny characters in town. Here comes a girl down the high street. She's full of problems and she's rattling away. And comes this guy who's always parking on the street, dresses in moons and stars. And he's a kind of, wizardy kind of a guy. And then also, there's 3 or 4 other characters featured in it. And it was a great moment to be able to make a piece of music like that. With a song chorus, She's a One. So I'm very proud of that. And I found some old 50s footage, which I shall really do properly. I haven't done yet. 1950s in London, which, of course, I remember because I was born in 57. And I remember the sights, the clothes, the vehicles, and the world after the war. I was born 12 years after the end of World War II. So anyway, that's She's a One. Then we come to, that's introducing the boogie music, which of course was brought here by the Americans. The Americans in World War II. We didn't have boogie music till those guys turned up. So there's a song on this record called Nobody's Darling, and it's a true story about a B-17 that crash landed on the beach at Burnham-on-Sea in New Year's Eve 1943. Now Nobody's Darling, with a crew of 6 or 8, I'm not sure, was on its way back from a mission, and it was on fire, and it was too low to bail out and too far to Polbrook, North Yorkshire, where they were based. So as they went over Burnham-on-Sea, they saw the tide was up, and they put the plane down in the surf, they put the fire out, climbed up onto the top of the wings, and the locals came out to greet them, and they said, "We didn't even get our feet wet." Now, Walt C. Skinner was the top turret gunner, and he came back in, I believe, 2007, before he died, to unveil a plaque in Bridgewater Library to Nobody's Darling. Now, I'd spent a lot of time at Burnham-on-Sea, and I was very haunted and interested in that story. I thought it was kind of magical, like that magical Holy Coast. So I wrote the song Nobody's Darling, and a friend of mine, Jack Hardin, is an actor. He's from Savannah, Georgia, and he works in movies doing voiceovers, and he's an incredible actor and an incredible voice to listen to. So I said, Jack, would you tell this story on the record? So on Nobody's Darling, you can hear Jack Hardin telling that story. And the beat is a kind of Motown beat. For instance, You Can't Hurry Love, bom, 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 da bom, bom, da bom, bom. And I Feel Free, by the Yardbirds, bum 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 to bum, and lastly, Lust for Life, Iggy Pop. Anyway, which is the one most people think it sounds like, but it's a Motown beat originally, and I'm pretty happy with it. I wish it was a bit more grounded. It jumps all over the place. It's exciting, and there's a video on YouTube with real footage from the time and some drone footage of the lighthouse, which is what they would have seen as they've put themselves down and saved their lives. Amazing story. After that, we go into side 2, Chill Out. We go into electronica, lo-fi, and back comes that chanting. And a dear friend of mine, Tangi Wilson, who's got a band called the Anderson Sisters, and they sing World War II Andrew Sisters songs. So I thought, it's got to be Tangi. Can you please sing Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree with anyone else but me? Hey, that was pretty good, Tans, wasn't it? And she appears in that, and it's quite haunting. And there is the weather report from Europe, which is what they would have heard at the time, in the wartime. So anyway, that's basically what happens, and that changes key and floats around. By the time you get out of that, you're somewhere else included, somewhere else, far, far from rock and roll. Back in the story, a day when we became allies, for better or worse, and we still are, for better or worse, and those boys made it home. Thank you. And they also came here to save our asses for some people that really meant business. And I wouldn't be here now because of my family. I wouldn't be here now if it wouldn't been for those guys. So thank you. After that, there's a song called, very much in the same vein, very dreamy, strings, no drums, scratching sounds, communication sounds, radio sounds, which is a feature on the album before too, and the one before, Natural Radio. I follow the threads till I get fed up of them, and then I jettison, and then I find another thread. But at this point, time to be is spoken. And it's time to be, time to walk in nature, time for tea. Time and tide won't wait for me. And I'm proud of that. It's a lovely moment about just having time for oneself. The album finishes with a track I'd done a few years before when I'd written a lyric called Spare a Thought about life on the streets as I was working in socialisation, welfare, addictions, homelessness on the streets. And I wrote a song called Spare a Thought. I knew it had to be like Ghosts by Japan, haunting, bubbling and synthesizer. And I remembered that Mark Ty Wharton had sent me 2 bits of music that I might write words for one day. And I went in and looked, and there was one that fitted the bill. And I listened, and tucked away inside these bubbling, seemingly disjointed or chaotic rumblings or bubblings was a tune. Da da da, da da da. So I sang it like Ron Moody in Oliver, the music I grew up with. Mum and Dad were big show music fans and went to the West End all the time with my uncle and aunt from Maidenhead to watch the latest show. Mum still does. My sister takes her to see Starlight Express, Cats about 10 times. And I grew up with the records of Oliver with Ron Moody, playing the original Fagin, and that Jewish voice, that even Anthony Newley, that would have been an influence on David Bowie. And for what it's worth, I think I sing it pretty well. I did it first take, I left it. Mark Ty Wharton did some mixes and put them out too. But the record is my mix of a co-write between me and Mark Ty Wharton, Spare a Thought. Whether it belongs on the album, in some ways, no. But when you've got a great song like that, a great single you've put out, it goes on the album. That is basically the story of Leaving Asheville. The front cover shows a guitar shot that was taken from the back of a stage one summer's day playing on an outdoor show. And like all my album covers, it's an oblique photo on a white background, incredibly inspired by Peter Blake's work with Graph Freaks and Hypnosis and now Yacht Associates. Peter knows what I think about his work because a friend of mine was taught by him at Falmouth, and he shone it right on back by plagiarising one of my album covers, namely Benedict Street from 1997, for a tour book with the details of the hotels and the times of the ins and outs and the shows for the band Reef as they toured Japan in 1999. Peter Blake, the man who designed Sgt. Pepper. Thank you so much, Peter. You are a legend, an absolute legend. And people don't realise how influential yourself, the Beatles, and all of the work you've done through the 60s when it was all new. And we were all so thrilled to see this burst of colour from a black and white world that we were born into. Leaving Asheville, Dave Beach. You can find it on iTunes.